Hello, and thank you for joining us. My name is Charles Thompson. I will be your host for today's special webinar. I want to thank each of you for joining us today. I will do my very best to ensure that your time is informative and well spent. The purpose of this approximately 20-minute webinar is to help educate you on solar, the potential benefits of solar, and how you can convert to solar on your home. We'll provide you with enough information to see if solar is right for you and your family. We'll go over how solar works, and we'll also talk about power and what makes us unique in the industry. By the end of this webinar, one of two things will happen. You'll determine that solar isn't right for you, and if not, that's okay. You'll be more educated and informed, or you'll see the benefits for your home, and we'll then prepare you for the next steps to get a custom savings proposal for you to review. A little bit about our company. Power is on a mission to panel more than 2 million homes by 2025 and accelerate the world's adoption to clean energy. We've created a platform over the last 4 years that introduces homeowners to the very best local and regional solar providers, and on average save our customers over $25,000 during the life of their system, and even more as the system is paid off from a loan that we will facilitate. We've invested over $9 million to create this platform, and so far have designed almost 30,000 systems for homeowners. So we've seen a lot of what works, and we also know what doesn't work in the industry. We have a network of nearly 100 of the best-in-class regional installation providers and are expanding constantly. We can help your friends and family members in 45 states, in Puerto Rico, Canada, and Australia. So if you like what you hear and see during this webinar, we will also welcome you to share this information with your friends and family in any of our serviceable areas. In fact, once you're registered with us, you'll be introduced to an incredible incentive program that we have for referring others to us here at Power. There are a lot of myths about solar. Solar's actually been around for over 60 years. And up until the last few years, solar was considered expensive, largely because there wasn't access to the low interest loans that I just mentioned. This is where you're allowed to replace the bill you're currently receiving to rent energy from a monopolized utility system with a payment to own a power plant that can be on your roof or backyard, where you can actually purchase power from yourself and add an asset to your home. And we'll talk more about that during the proposal process. Access to the sun is commonly misunderstood. You might be someone like me who receives a sunburn on a cloudy day. Solar panels actually operate off of UV rays, which means they can create energy even when it's cloudy or raining. And the technology really hasn't changed much over the past 60 years. Panels have gotten a little bit smaller. They become more efficient, and they actually look much better since they've gone from a bright blue color system to flat black. Over the years, I've had the benefit of interviewing hundreds of people about how we power our grid, and most people really haven't given this question much thought. Basically, we flip a switch and things work. So let's take a deeper look. This is what we see, an array of wires, which of course aren't all that attractive, but here's what we don't see. Not only is it dirty, it's an extremely inefficient process. If you take coal as an example, we dig it up, we go through the process of filtering it and burning it, and only 1/3 of the initial energy actually makes it to the home. 1/3. That means that 2/3 of it is wasted. And who do you think is paying for that? We are, of course. Our main source of energy does come from dirty energy, although we're seeing a fantastic trend where more and more renewable energy is coming into the grid. We still have over 7,600 operational power plants here in the USA alone. Contrast to that, let's look at how solar powers your home and office. The panels capture the ultraviolet rays, the UV rays, as I mentioned. They channel DC energy into an inverter, converting that to usable energy, AC. So solar energy is really a good alternative to replace the fossil fuels as a major energy source. And I'm sure we can all agree that pollution in the world has gotten worse. But unlike conventional power, solar produces no harmful emissions that hurt the environment. It's clean, it's renewable, and it uses the most natural of all resources, the sun. Solar power helps you also become independent of the monopolies because you will not be at the mercy of the utility providers. They can raise their energy costs, but you won't be affected by it like someone who's renting all of their energy because you'll own a power plant and you will be in control of your pricing. This is what a solar panel looks like. I always say the magic occurs right here, the crystalline cells. Everything else is designed to protect those cells so that it won't be impacted by the elements, i.e. the weather. You'll find that virtually nothing that happens in our environment today can have a negative impact on the production of solar for your home or the health and wellness of the panel itself. Many panels form what we call an array. Our goal is to design a system that will replace as much or hopefully all of the energy that you're currently renting from the monopolized utility grid with energy that you can create, clean, abundant energy that comes from your roof or from your backyard. That's the purpose of the array. This is what an entire system entails. There's not any real true moving parts, so the life cycle of a system is oftentimes well beyond any of your potential usages. I actually know someone who has solar panels on their roof for 40 years. It's comprised of panels, the inverter that I mentioned earlier, a significant amount of wiring that stays within your structure, the racking and railing systems, which make it clean and sleek, and then it is connected to the grid. And we will talk a little bit about this, what we call grid-tied solar systems. There are a number of ways that you can be incentivized in addition to just the benefit of saving money on an energy bill. The first is a federal tax credit. If you have taxable income, you may be eligible for a 30% tax credit. And these credits are very, very time sensitive. Over the next few years, the federal tax credit is going to continue to decrease and predictably go completely away. And then depending upon the market that you are in, we will include this in our proposal that we give to you. You'll find that there are potentially local incentives. So back to this tax credit, this 30%, let's just say if a system cost $30,000, that means that you can potentially qualify for a credit of 1/3. We're talking about $10,000 incentive. But again, timing is very, very important as those incentives continue to be decreased, especially as the laws continue to be passed. Recently, Miami enacted a law that requires homes that are new construction to go solar. California just passed a law that starting in January of 2020, all new construction homes must have solar. So if you consider that, imagine as the laws start to change and that goes around the entire country, are there going to be needs to incentivize that type of activity? No. So the purpose is take advantage of it while the incentives exist. Now, most people know what they pay for a gallon of gas. And if you're like me, you might even drive a few extra miles to your favorite station so you can save a few cents per gallon. What if you've been given the option to lock in gas at $1 a gallon 20 years ago? Would you have opted in for that service? Well, most would say yes. Then do you know what you're currently paying for a kilowatt hour of electricity? Most people don't even know what a kilowatt hour is, so don't feel bad if you don't. Basically, a kilowatt hour is a measurement of how much energy you're using, much like a gallon is a measurement of liquid capacity. But unlike gasoline pricing, most people don't know what they're paying for a kilowatt hour. When you rent electricity from the utility, you pay for it in the form of a kilowatt hour that also covers the various miscellaneous delivery, generation, and charges that you see. Many people are renting or buying thousands and thousands of kilowatt hours every year, even per month, without having an understanding, and that's intentional on behalf of the utilities. So let's take a look at how you can discern what you're currently paying for a kilowatt hour of energy. the simplest way is you can see all these miscellaneous charges that are associated here. And it may not look like you're paying that much for a kilowatt hour, but the real way to look at it is to take your total bill, in this case, $525.03, and divide it by the number of kilowatt hours that you consume during that period. And that will give you your price per kilowatt hour. When you convert to solar, unless there's any fixed monthly charges, all of these excessive peak charges, demand charges, off this, off that, why do you think they do that? It's because they can. And you will have the independence in going solar to eliminate virtually any or all of these charges from occurring. Take a look at your bill, and that's something that we will actually need to be able to proceed with the proposal, because what we want to do is, again, we go back to the array. We want to look at your consumption, and we want to design a system that will replace the energy that you're renting from the utility grid with something that you own. Also, have you noticed that your rates keep increasing? When's the last time that the electric company or utility company called you and asked you for your permission? The data is it's 4 to 6% per year. So let's just use 5%. That means your rates will double virtually every 10 years. So if you're paying, in this case, $525, that person in 10 years can predictably pay $1,000 per month. In 20 to 25 years, $2,000 per month. There's 50 years of data. What's great is that with solar, it's going to help you with all of this. So you don't have to come home and worry about what was turned on, wasn't turned on. So wrapping up with this, what if I knocked on your door 20 years ago, back to that gas analogy, back before all the rate hikes, and I asked you if you would like to lock your rates in for the next 20 years? Would you have opted in for that service? Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we're offering you today. Vis-a-vis solar to lock in your rates in virtual perpetuity. One of the things that's important with solar is known as net metering. It's a cooperation with your utility that you enter into an agreement with them to lock in the rates that they will pay for the energy. Let's talk a little bit about that. What we use are commonly known as grid-tied solar electric systems. The power is only generated during the daylight hours. That's when your demand is generally going to be lower. Most of your power is needed at night when the sun is not out. The system is connected to the grid, so it acts like a giant battery. Basically, if you see here, what you'll do is the grid receives any excess energy that you produce during the daylight hours, and you would then pull from the grid during the night when there's no sun. The power company then credits you for the electricity you put on, and typically that's a 1-for-1 credit. And then they deduct the credits at night when you draw the energy during the evening hours. And then they bill you each month for the difference. And oftentimes utilities will have what's called an annual true-up. They'll consolidate everything. They'll wrap it up with an annual bill. If you owe them anything, then you pay. If you don't, then they issue you a credit that you can either carry forward or oftentimes take the wholesale value of that energy that you created. So it's a very simple approach. I like to look at it in the form of a graph. So this is a typical consumption of a home. This black line here is the energy that's being consumed in a given day. You can see the peaks and valleys, but you'll see these other color schemes here. This blue here is what you're purchasing from the grid. Even when you have solar, you're actually purchasing energy from the grid when the solar panels are not producing power. But this section here in the red, this is the excess energy that you create in your home. What happens to that energy? Basically gets reallocated, reapplied vis-a-vis net metering and the credits that you receive for producing the extra power. Now, not all homes are equal. Not all homes are eligible for solar. So one of the things that we're going to do is look at some of the criteria. The cost of your energy, the credit, whether you want to take advantage of low interest financing or pay cash, your roofing, and any shading that you might have. So what we're going to do is, first of all, look at your panel, your electric panel, because generally solar requires a 200 amp panel. So it's not bad news if you don't have a 200 amp panel. Then what we will do is we'll upgrade your electrical system. so that it can accommodate or facilitate going solar. So that's one of the things we want to take a look at. In addition to your bill, we'd like to get a picture of your panel. So we'd like to make sure you give us a picture that shows here and possibly an electric meter that you have as well. That's just one of the simple eligibility requirements. And then we'll look at the roof. We need to look at the orientation, the size, the shape, the direction. The best solar production comes from a roof that's facing south. So we're going to see, is there enough space for the panels on the south side? The second best is going to be east-west, and north is generally not going to produce enough energy, so we don't take that into consideration. We'll also look at the roof quality. Do we need to replace the roof? And the good news is that if we do, if you need to replace your roof, you may also be eligible for a 30% tax credit for the new section of the roof that facilitated going solar. And then we're going to take a look at any trees that you may have, particularly those that are facing the south and they potentially could create shading issues. So these are things that we'll generally do before we come out to your home to give your proposal so we know if your home is eligible. There's 130 million single family residences here in the US. 90 million of those are already eligible under the current criteria. So we just need to see if you're one of those 90 million homes. Now, oftentimes people ask what type of impact will the environment, will the weather, whether it be fog or rain or whatever the conditions may be. And you can see here, these are the general terms that we deal with in terms of reduction in production. And generally speaking, none of them have a complete negative effect. The only thing that could happen is if the sun never came up again, which would be a much bigger problem in solar production, then we may have an issue. But even dirty panels, the age of panels, hail, fog, you name it, we can talk more about that in depth when we do the presentation, but it's a very, very minimal impact, if any, with regards to your production. Now, these are the top reasons that homeowners currently go solar. Oftentimes it comes down to this, the control and predictability. Currently, again, I said it earlier, when's the last time the electric company called and asked you permission to raise your prices? You are not in control. You cannot even predict what those prices are going to be in the coming years and decades. With solar, you virtually lock in your price for energy in perpetuity. So you are in control, not the monopolized utility. Because not to mention, it's one of the most solid investments that creates an asset into your home that grows in value, reduces your bill, and creates a very positive impact with regard to the environment. So the next step, assuming that this is something of interest to you, is to look at a proposal. We'll want to know whether you want to look at a cash price or whether you want to take advantage of the low interest financing that we will facilitate for you. So one of the things we'll encourage you to do is put that information together, get a picture of your panel, of your meter, and of your bill, and then get back to the person who introduced you. And I'll recap here before we do that. Let's look at the benefits. You get an immediate savings. So depending upon what market you're in and the cost of energy in that market, you'll see an immediate savings of 5 to 50%. You'll see an increase in your home value. If you look at an independent Lawrence Berkeley study that shows the average home increases between 5 and 15% in value, you're going to fix that energy cost so you know exactly what you're paying for your energy. And then ultimately, not only will you save $25,000 to $30,000 over the life of your loan, you'll continue to save as you have that solar producing energy that you no longer are paying the utility for. That's the best proposition I've seen in any type of offering available. So here are your options. The options are you can stick with what you're currently doing. Stick with your current electricity provider. Have the unpredictable rates that add no value to your home. If that works for you, that's an option. The other option is you can go solar with zero out-of-pocket cost, immediate savings, have that control and predictability, and add the value that we talked about in your home. Which of those is best for you would be the obvious question. Well, assuming that it's go solar, the next steps are we submit the bill, we get those pictures that we need, we set up an appointment time to visit with you and give you a solid proposal that can review by you and your family. If everything looks good, you can review and sign that installation agreement electronically. A solar installer will visit your home typically just to make sure that we have everything that we need to conduct the permitting. We'll apply for the permit. whether that's residential or commercial. And that sometimes is the most timely portion of what we have to do. Once we have the permitting, we'll complete the installation, we'll coordinate a utility company inspection, they'll sign off on everything, they'll flip the switch, and you'll start saving money. That's the best proposition we can do. So what I would encourage you to do at this point is submit your questions to the person who introduced you here to Power. Get those questions answered. Get your copy of your bill, your panel, your meter, and let's get a proposal put together and show you how you can shift from dirty to clean energy, start saving money, and take control of your future energy costs. I want to thank you for participating. I hope the time is informative and well spent. Thank you so much.